In the shadowy halls of medieval dungeons, where justice and cruelty often blurred, stood one of the most terrifying torture devices ever conceived, the iron chair. It was not a simple seat, not a piece of furniture, but a throne of agony built to strip away dignity, shatter the body, and crush the spirit. The iron chair appeared deceptively ordinary at first glance. It resembled a large, heavy chair with armrests, a broad back, and a seat built to hold a full-grown adult. But upon closer inspection, its true horror was revealed. Every inch of its surface, seat, back, armrests, and even footrests, was covered in sharp iron spikes. Hundreds of them pointed upward, designed so that once a victim was placed upon it, their flesh would be pierced in countless places at once. There was no position of comfort, no way to shift without driving the spikes deeper into skin. The victim would be stripped or partially unclothed, then forced down onto the chair. As their weight pressed against the spikes, blood began to flow immediately. To ensure there was no escape from the torment, iron clamps or straps were fixed across the arms, legs, chest, and even the neck. Once fastened, the victim could not move. Every breath caused flesh to tear further. Every tremor of fear sent new jolts of pain through the body. But the torment of the iron chair did not end with piercing wounds. Beneath the chair, executioners often placed hot coals, braziers, or open flames. As the iron heated, the spikes themselves grew red-hot, burning and roasting the victim from below. Skin cooked where it touched metal. The smell of scorched flesh filled the chamber. For those subjected to this cruelty, there was no escape from the combined torture of puncture and fire. The iron chair was used in many parts of medieval Europe, from Germany to Italy, and variations of it were recorded across centuries. Sometimes the spikes were longer, sometimes shorter, but the purpose was always the same: to terrify, to punish, to extract confessions. Victims were often interrogated while strapped into the chair, their screams of agony used as leverage to force them into admitting crimes, whether true or false. It was not only a tool of physical torture, but also psychological terror. To be led into a chamber and shown the iron chair was often enough to break prisoners before they were even strapped down. The sight of a chair bristling with spikes, glinting in torchlight, promised pain beyond imagination. Many victims confessed at once, their minds unraveling at the idea of what awaited them. The cruelty of the device lay in its design. Unlike execution methods that brought quick death, the iron chair was intended to prolong suffering. A victim might be left seated for hours, bleeding slowly from dozens of puncture wounds. If heat was applied, the torture escalated into unbearable levels. But even without fire, the spikes ensured misery. In some accounts, victims died not immediately, but after long hours, their bodies broken by shock, blood loss, and infection. One notorious account describes how executioners would tighten the straps deliberately, pressing the victim harder against the spikes, causing deeper wounds with every adjustment. In some cases, the spikes were strategically placed to pierce sensitive parts of the body, under the arms, along the back, and even beneath the thighs. There was no part of the body safe from its bite. The iron chair was not always used to kill. Sometimes it was a tool of demonstration, where a victim would be seated briefly, tortured enough to terrify them, then released, scarred and broken, as a warning to others. At other times, the chair became a stage for public executions. In city squares, in front of jeering crowds, prisoners were strapped into the iron chair, flames lit beneath them, and their deaths turned into theater. The audience watched as screams filled the air, as the condemned roasted alive before their eyes. The spectacle reinforced the power of the state, a reminder of what awaited anyone who defied authority. What makes the iron chair particularly chilling is its blend of simplicity and cruelty. It did not rely on complex mechanics or hidden tricks. It was a chair, an object of everyday life, transformed into an engine of suffering. Its horror lay in that very familiarity twisted into violence, To sit, to rest, to find comfort, these most basic human actions were inverted. The iron chair turned sitting into a death sentence. Its very existence reveals something about the medieval mind and the role of torture in justice. Torture was not only about extracting truth, it was about instilling fear. The iron chair sent a message to prisoners and to the public. The state could turn even the most ordinary object into an instrument of terror. No one was safe from its power. The device also reveals how medieval punishments were designed to attack not just the body but the soul. A victim strapped into the iron chair was rendered powerless. They could not struggle, could not flee, could not even collapse in death without enduring hours of torment. Their screams, their writhing, their eventual silence, all served as proof of the authority of the torturers. It was suffering, choreographed into a performance of control. Yet behind its dark reputation, the iron chair also raises questions. How many truly suffered upon it? Was it used frequently, or was its fame larger than its actual use? Historical evidence suggests that while it certainly existed and was used, its presence in popular imagination may have grown beyond the number of recorded cases. Still, even if only a fraction of the stories are true, the device remains one of the most terrifying symbols of medieval torture. The image of the iron chair survives not because of numbers, but because of what it represents. The extremes of human cruelty, the blending of creativity and sadism, the transformation of ordinary objects into weapons of unimaginable pain. For those who sat upon it even for a moment, it was no legend. It was reality, a reality of spikes, piercing flesh, iron glowing with heat, and breath after agonizing breath taken in hopeless terror. The iron chair's legacy is not just in the physical torment it inflicted, but in the deep psychological fear it inspired. In an age where justice and brutality were intertwined, the very rumor of such a device was enough to keep communities in line. Medieval rulers and inquisitors understood that terror was as effective as the blade. People did not need to witness dozens of executions to feel the weight of authority. The whispered existence of the iron chair was enough to plant nightmares. Inquisition records show that the device was sometimes presented as a threat before any torture even began. A prisoner, already terrified of what awaited them, might confess the moment they saw the cruel throne in a darkened chamber. The spiked surface gleaming under torchlight told them all they needed to know. The promise of agony, of being trapped in silence as the metal bit deeper into flesh, often broke a person's will before they were ever strapped in. In this way, the chair was as much a weapon of the mind as it was of the body. When victims did face its horrors, the spectacle was often drawn out with calculated cruelty. Some accounts describe how executioners would place victims lightly on the spikes, then tighten the straps gradually, each adjustment driving the body further into pain. This slow escalation made every moment a test of endurance. The victim could feel the inevitability of suffering closing in, every turn of the strap another nail in their coffin. The addition of fire made the chair a nightmare beyond imagination. Heated from below, the spikes became branding irons pressed into flesh. Victims roasted slowly, their screams echoing against stone walls or across public squares. The smell of burning skin mixed with blood filled the air. For spectators, the event was unforgettable. For the condemned, it was inescapable hell. Unlike devices such as the rack or the wheel, which stretched and broke the body in spectacular ways, the iron chair combined intimacy with agony. The victims sat upright, facing their executioners, forced to endure every moment consciously. They could not thrash wildly, could not faint and fall away from the pain. Bound tightly, they endured every stab of the spikes, every lick of flame, fully awake. This conscious suffering made the punishment especially terrifying. In some cities, variations of the iron chair were given names tied to their region. In Nuremberg, it was referred to as the chair of confession, while in other parts of Europe, it was simply called the spiked chair. Regardless of the name, Its symbolism was the same: sit upon the throne, and you surrendered both body and spirit to the will of authority. The psychological weight of the device was so powerful that even after the Middle Ages, tales of the iron chair continued to circulate. During the Renaissance, when execution devices were refined into even more elaborate spectacles, the chair remained a symbol of medieval cruelty. Its reputation far outlasted its widespread use, haunting the imagination of Europe long after the flames beneath it had burned out. But the iron chair was not only a tool of punishment, it was also a mirror reflecting the fears of the societies that built it. In times of religious upheaval, heretics and accused witches were threatened with its spikes. In periods of political unrest, rebels and conspirators were reminded that even defiance of words could bring them to the chair. It served as proof that authority could transform the ordinary act of sitting, a posture of rest, into a posture of agony. Modern historians debate how frequently the iron chair was actually used. Some argue that it was less common than legend suggests, its fame magnified by fearful retellings. Others believe it was used often enough to leave its scars across Europe. Either way, its image is powerful enough to endure centuries later. Museums across Europe still display replicas or preserved versions of spiked chairs, drawing shudders from visitors who cannot imagine the suffering they once caused. The iron chair also stands as a reminder of how creativity and cruelty can intertwine. It was not a complex machine of gears and ropes. It did not rely on elaborate mechanics. Its power lay in its simplicity: spikes, straps, and fire. These three elements combined into a device that could break a person's body and will with ruthless efficiency. Its simplicity made it adaptable, repeatable, and unforgettable. For the condemned, the end came in different ways. Some died from blood loss, others from shock, and still others from the slow roast of fire. Few endured long, but none escaped suffering. Their deaths became public theater, ensuring that their screams echoed as warnings to anyone who dared to defy the powers of the age. Today, the iron chair is remembered not as justice, but as cruelty. It is a relic of a time when pain was currency and fear was law. It teaches us how punishment can move beyond correction into pure spectacle, designed not to reform, but to terrify. And in that sense, its lesson endures. The iron chair is more than a medieval artifact. It is a chilling reminder of what happens when authority loses all restraint, when suffering becomes a tool, and when human ingenuity is turned not toward creation, but toward destruction. In the flickering firelight of medieval chambers, as victims cried out and iron glowed red, the iron chair stood as one of the darkest thrones in history. If this journey into the horrors of the iron chair unsettled you, and you want to uncover more about the world's most brutal executions, punishments, and torture devices, subscribe to Torture's Rooms. From the brazen bull to breaking wheels, from flayings to fiery deaths, we bring you the stories history tried to bury, tales of cruelty, fear, and the resilience of those who endured them. Because the past reminds us of a haunting truth: when power and cruelty unite, even a simple chair can become a throne of terror.